There comes a time, an hour, tucked in silence, when the veil between who you are and who you were trained to be begins to thin, not in a storm of drama, but in the hush of a subtle disobedience. You begin to turn, slightly at first, not away from the world, but towards something deeper, something aching and ancient within. It is the rebellion of the soul against the scaffolding of persona, the whisper of a name you haven't heard in years your own, but unmasked, unscripted, the one that existed before you learned to survive. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe. The more you engage and stay with the content, the more YouTube shares these timeless insights with others. By doing so, you're not only helping this channel grow, but also spreading Carl Jung's transformative wisdom to those seeking meaning and inner truth. Let's dive into the depth of the psyche together. At first, this turn inward feels luminous. You expect light, perhaps ease. But what arrives is a rearrangement of the atmosphere. Those whose eyes once held warmth look through you as though you've become fog. The shift is so subtle that you question your own perception. Have I done something wrong? But the psyche does not mislead. The answer rises, cloaked and trembling. You have done something profoundly right. You have dared to love yourself. And in doing so, the architecture of every relationship built upon your self-abandonment begins to quake. Your laughter no longer masks your weariness. Your presence is no longer a performance. The smile that once placated now disappears, and in its place truth, undefended. People do not always respond to truth with welcome. They respond as the dreamer responds to waking, as if pulled from a cradle of illusions into the blinding light of day. Because you were once a character in their unconscious script, your refusal to continue playing that role is a rupture, a sacred rupture. You were the one who always said yes, who always understood, who didn't ask, didn't need, didn't take up too much space. But now, something ancient and sovereign has risen in you. Something that says, I too am worthy of presence. I too am allowed to exist. And so, the air grows cold, not with cruelty, but with disorientation. The others have not changed, but they are meeting you now, perhaps for the first time, and they do not recognize the reflection. They are seeing themselves reflected back with clarity, no longer distorted by your bending, your dimming, your diminishment. This is the terror of clear mirrors. For to love yourself is to cleanse the surface of your being from the fingerprints of others, the roles, the projections, the imposed myths. You begin to remember that love is not service when it costs you your essence. That silence is not peace if it mutes your truth. That loyalty is not love if it asks for your vanishing. The self begins to speak, and the shadow begins to stir. All the abandoned aspects of you, long locked in psychic exile, begin to crawl toward the fire you've lit. The fierce child who once screamed against injustice, the artist who was told beauty is indulgent, the warrior who buried their sword for the sake of approval. They come not to haunt, but to return, bearing gifts. Their names are rage, desire, grief, courage. They are not your undoing. They are your reunion. And still, the others recoil. Some mourn, though they do not know what they mourn. Others accuse. You've changed, as though change is a betrayal. But the caterpillar must become unrecognizable to fulfill its fate. You cannot walk into wholeness and still wear the garb of compliance. You cannot resurrect the soul and keep the ego unshaken. And so, they distance. Let them, not as punishment, but as a necessary unraveling. For the old contracts must be burned before the sacred covenant with yourself can be sealed. You are not their savior. You were never meant to bleed in place of their awakening. Your exhaustion is not noble. Your erasure is not holy. To love yourself is to refuse to be consumed. And yes, the psyche grieves. You will ache for the old familiar. You will long for the comfort of being needed, even at the cost of your being. But deeper still, you will feel something else, something that does not ache, but hums, a resonance, a knowing, a return. It is the song of the self-capital S, the archetypal wholeness that has always waited beneath the rubble of adaptation. In your dreams, the myth unfolds. You find yourself running not from danger, but from old skins. You are chased by shadows that are your own, turned monstrous by years of neglect. But now, in your waking love, you stand, you face, you integrate, and the monsters dissolve into misunderstood messengers. Sometimes you dream of locked doors, cold rooms, those you once loved turning away. Let these dreams come. They are not omens, but initiations. They are rituals in the night, where the unconscious dramatizes the soul's revolution. You are not being abandoned. You are being remembered, recollected, reformed. This is not a betrayal of others. It is a fidelity to the God within. To walk this path is not to forsake love, but to love more deeply, beginning with the first sacred other, yourself. You cease to be the echo. You become the voice, not louder, but truer, not demanding, but undivided. And the world adjusts, slowly, reluctantly, but some will stay. Some will rise. Some will meet you where you are going, because your becoming gives them permission to begin. And so, soul by soul, the world transforms. You become a mirror not of distortion, but of awakening, a presence not of performance, but of being, a love not of sacrifice, but of radiance. And in this radiant love, you live. Now, dear traveler of the deep, if you have felt the bones of this message resonate beneath your skin, if you have wept in recognition, or stood silently in its reflection, leave a number in the comments that speaks from the dream. Let it not be random, but ritual. Let it be a cipher, a totem, a glyph carved from the marrow of your psyche. Perhaps it is the sacred number of initiation, or 13 is the threshold of death and rebirth, or 22, the path of the fool turned master, or even the fertile void from which all archetypes arise. Choose with the heart, not the mind. Let the number be a spell, a whisper from the unconscious, a signal fire to others wandering the same forest. And know this, you are not alone. You are never broken. You are the dream becoming lucid, the mask falling away, the soul remembering its original face. Leave your number like a stone on the altar. Let it speak for you. Let it mark your place in this great unfolding. We walk together, even when the path is silent. You no longer need to wear their approval like armor. You no longer need to dance for their gaze. The coldness of others is in dreams, often the warmth of inner clarity. Your soul is saying, let them go. You are becoming real. Yes, real. Not ideal. Not perfect, but real. And reality offends illusion. Your authenticity ruptures the spell of unconscious attachment. It calls others into their own self-love. And if they are not ready, they resist. This is not cruelty. It is archetypal. It is a dance of the awakened among the sleeping. You must understand, this is ancient in every myth. So the hero who returns home transformed is met not with celebration, but suspicion. Think of the prodigal son, not the father's joy, but the brother's bitterness. Think of the mystics, whose love of the divine was mistaken for madness. Think of Christ, who loved beyond limits, and for that was crucified by those whose power required obedience. To love yourself is to walk the same road. You are no longer a servant to others' projections. You have stepped into the temple of your own being. But temples make people nervous. Temples remind them of what they have not yet built within themselves. So they turn cold. And you must let the cold wind blow, for it clears the air. You must let the distance grow, for it gives you space to plant new roots. You must let the silence linger, for it allows your inner voice to finally be heard. The psyche does not evolve through comfort. It evolves through confrontation. And to love yourself in a world that profits from your self-doubt is the greatest confrontation of all. You are not being abandoned. You are being refined. This is the fire of the alchemist, not to destroy, but to transmute. You are turning lead into gold, fear into wisdom, compliance into courage. And those who turned cold were not your warmth. They were your mirrors. And now that your reflection has changed, they no longer recognize themselves in you. Let them find their own reflection. Let them journey through their own night of the soul. For your love of self has now become a symbol, a living archetype of what is possible. You are becoming the self, not the self-image, not the borrowed identity, but the eternal essence that lives beyond the mask. And as you walk further, you will find new souls. Souls who do not fear your light, who do not require your dimness to shine, who do not grow cold when you are warm with your own presence. But first, you must walk through this desert. You must face the silence. You must sit with the echoes of who you once were. And in that stillness, you will find that the one person who never turned cold, the one person who always remained, was you. And this is the beginning of freedom. You have learned by now that love, true love, especially self-love, is not a feeling, but a force, a movement of psychic energy. It is Eros turned inward, no longer scattered toward the world, but flowing back toward the soul's forgotten garden. And yet, as with all great forces, it leaves a wake. It stirs what lies dormant. It awakens what others have long silenced in themselves. And this is why, when you begin to love yourself, the world around you shifts often in silence, sometimes with sharpness, and always with consequence. Now, let you descend deeper. You must come to terms with the archetype of the lover, not the romantic fantasy, but the primordial lover who dwells within every soul. This lover seeks union not with others first, but with the fragmented self. He is the one who touches the rejected child, who whispers to the banished desire, who dares to hold the bleeding wound without turning away. When this archetype awakens in you, it does not begin with softness. It begins with disruption. You see with new eyes the places where you have betrayed yourself. You notice the subtle patterns, how you spoke less, so others could feel more important, how you smiled while crumbling inside, how you celebrated others' light while hiding your own like a shameful relic. To awaken the lover within is to become radically honest, and radical honesty ruptures illusions. You begin to speak not with aggression, but with authenticity. And for many this is a crime, not because truth harms, but because truth reveals. It unmasks. It removes the veil from the unspoken contract. I will like you as long as you stay in your place, as long as your light doesn't blind me, as long as your truth doesn't disturb mine. When you break this contract, when you love yourself aloud, you do not just awaken yourself. You become a symbol, and symbols have power. They penetrate the unconscious without permission. They unsettle. They inspire. They threaten. And herein lies the paradox. Your healing is not offensive. Your boundaries are not violence. Your joy is not selfishness. And yet, to those still living through the eyes of their wounded child, all of these are interpreted as betrayal. I have seen it countless times. A woman finally says no to being everyone's emotional container, and suddenly, she is cold. A man dares to cry, to tend to his own wounds, and he is called weak. a soul decides to withdraw from toxic cheerfulness and is labeled distant, changed, difficult. But these are not regressions. These are returns. A return to the self before it was split to fit in. A return to the original blueprint before it was edited for acceptance. A return to the inner temple where God still speaks, not through doctrine or discipline, but through instinct, dream, silence. And so, the ones who turn cold, they are not turning cold toward you, but toward the mystery you now carry. They do not know how to approach you anymore, because you no longer approach yourself through the old doorway of shame. The human psyche, my friend, is terrified of freedom. We say we want it. We chant. We pray for it. But when we see someone become it, we retreat, because freedom demands we let go of our roles, our masks, our dependencies. Your self-love forces a confrontation. Who am I, if I cannot define myself in relation to your brokenness? This is what terrifies them. You are no longer the sponge. You are the seer, no longer the echo. You are the voice, no longer the mirror. You are the flame. And those who still live in the cold architecture of performance do not know how to be warm without the heat of your self-denial. Now, we must speak of the collective unconscious. All human beings swim in a great psychic ocean deeper than culture, deeper than family. This ocean is made of symbols, instincts, anciens paternels. And in this ocean lives a very old fear that to be truly oneself is to be cast out. It is the primal terror of the tribe. To be exiled meant death once. The nervous system remembers. So, when you start to love yourself, you awaken this memory in others, not consciously, but cellularly. They feel you stepping out of the tribal pattern. You are no longer dependent, apologetic, self-erasing. You have become the other, the one who dares to define herself from the inside out. And so they turn away, not because they are evil, but because they are unconscious. Reads your sovereignty as danger, and still, you must not turn back. You must stand in this sacred fire and allow the alchemy to occur. You must face the fear that if you truly love yourself, you will lose the love of others. And here is the holy truth. You might, but you will also gain something greater, the love of the self, not the ego, not the mask, not the role, but the self, capital S. The divine blueprint within you that does not shift with opinion or approval. The self that was never lost, only hidden beneath the rubble of years spent performing. And this self will not turn cold. It is the eternal warmth within. It is the womb and the flame, the cave and the sun. But you must pass through the desert first. You must weep for the friendships that cannot hold your truth. You must grieve the family dynamics that depended on your self-abandonment. You must mourn the identities that dissolve when no longer needed. But this mourning is sacred. Do not rush it. Do not bypass it. Every tear waters the soil of your becoming. And in time, you will see this coldness you feared was actually clarity. It was the sacred space being carved so that new warmth could find you. Not the warmth of performance, but of presence. Not the heat of being needed, but the radiance of being seen. Do not curse those who turned away. They served you. They revealed the places in which your love was conditional. They showed you where you still sought to earn what should be inherent. And now you are free. You do not need to be understood by everyone. You do not need to keep shrinking so that others feel told. You do not need to explain your joy, your peace, your choices. You are becoming an integrated soul, and integration, my friend, is not applause-worthy. It is lonely, it is sacred, and it is necessary. This is the path of the mystic, the awakened, the individuated one. And as you walk it, you will begin to see through new eyes. You will look upon the faces that once grew cold and feel not resentment, but compassion. You will see not enemies, but unawakened parts of yourself still caught in the dream of unworthiness. And you will bless them quietly, not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because your love is no longer transactional. It is no longer a bargain. It is no longer a desperate reaching outward. It is a wellspring flowing inward first, then outward without fear. You are not who you were. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to embody it. And those who can meet you here, who can love you as you love yourself, they will find you not because you begged, not because you proved, but because your very vibration will call them home. There is a moment, almost imperceptible, when you stop waiting for others to return, a moment when you realize that those who turned cold did not vanish because of your love, but because of their refusal to meet it. And in that realization, something ancient within you exhales. The soul, long compressed by the expectation of being everything for everyone, begins to take its original shape again. It is not arrogance to love yourself. It is memory. A remembering of what you once were before. Fear whispered that love must be earned through sacrifice, that worth must be proven through pain, that connection must be bartered through silence. This forgetting has haunted humanity from the child who internalized the scorn of an unavailable parent to the lover who gave all in hopes of receiving crumbs to the healer who dimmed their gifts so as not to outshine. These are not isolated incidents. These are archetypal wounds. They are part of the great psychic inheritance we all carry. And so, when you begin to love yourself, you are not merely helping yourself. You are healing the collective field. But to do this, you must cross the threshold that many fear to approach, the threshold of loneliness, not solitude. Solitude is chosen sacred, but loneliness, that cold place where the soul asks, if I no longer betray myself, will anyone remain? This is the question at the heart of all transformation. You see, the psyche does not fear being alone as much as it fears being abandoned. To be alone is to be with oneself. To be abandoned is to be rejected by the other. And that rejection touches a place so deep, so primal, that many choose to remain small rather than risk it. They keep themselves half-lit, half-true, half-healed, because they fear that in their fullness they will be forsaken. But here is the paradox. In your fullness, you may indeed be forsaken by some, but you will also be found by others who were always meant to walk with you. Those who resonate with your truth will not be repelled by your self-love. They will recognize it, celebrate it, reflect it. But first, the soul must be strong enough to withstand the echoes of the past. Those echoes that say, "Who are you to shine?" The unconscious stores these echoes like ghosts in a forgotten attic. They arise when you begin to expand. They whisper from childhood. They echo through the voices of past lovers, teachers, friends, each one repeating the same unconscious message. Stay small and you will stay safe. But safety is not the same as wholeness. A bird may be safe in its cage, but it was made for the sky. And you were made for wholeness. So when the coldness comes, when those you once warmed with your self-erasure begin to pull away, do not shrink, do not question the journey. Instead, look inward and ask, what part of me still believes I must be less in order to be loved? This is the work not to fight those who grow cold, not to beg for warmth from those addicted to your absence, but to meet the coldness within with fire. To stand before the archetype of the abandoned one and say, "You are not alone anymore. I will not abandon you again." You must remember the psyche contains multitudes. There is within you the wounded child and the watchful sage. the silent servant and the raging rebel. And in the moment you begin to love yourself, all these parts awaken. Some rejoice, some resist, some cry, some sabotage, because they have learned to survive through the conditions of unworthiness. You cannot heal what you refuse to meet. So meet them. Speak with the inner voices that once kept you silent. They were not your enemies. They were your protectors. Primitive. Yes. Outdated. Surely. But they were trying to shield you from the pain of rejection. Now it is time to thank them and release them. Your protection is no longer found in invisibility. It is found in integration. This is the great journey of individuation, not to eliminate the parts, but to unite them under the conscious self. And that self is born not in the light, but in the tension between light and shadow. It is forged in the fire of paradox to love yourself and be abandoned, to speak truth and be silenced, to be more whole and feel more alone. These are not failures. These are thresholds, initiations. You are being initiated into authenticity. And authenticity, while magnetic, is also divisive. It separates the real from the raw, the genuine from the projection, the soul from the strategy. And yes, some will leave, but others will arrive. Others who see you not as a resource, not as a reflection of their needs, but as a soul in motion. They will not flinch when you speak with strength. They will not punish your joy with withdrawal. They will not need you to disappear in order to feel whole. They will laugh the same way you now laugh yourself. Not out of fear, but from fullness. But to find them. You must become you. Not the you who performs, pleases, or persuades. Not the you who wears masks to keep peace, but the unmasked, unpolished, unbreakable you. The one who knows that love is not earned. It is remembered. And in that remembrance you become free. But freedom has its cost. It costs you the illusion that you were ever truly accepted by those who needed you asleep. It costs you the false warmth of conditional belonging. It costs you the numbing comfort of collective dreams. And what you receive in return is vision. You begin to see the invisible chains. You begin to sense the silent contracts that govern most relationships. You begin to hear the hidden prayers of the soul, long silence beneath survival. And in that seeing you rise, not above others, but within yourself. You begin to orbit around your own center, no longer flung outward in desperate pursuit of approval, no longer contorting to fit into stories that deny your essence. You become the author, the sculptor, the sovereign. And yes, some will call you difficult now. They will accuse you of being different. They will say you've changed. Do not argue. You have changed. You have shed the skin of your old agreements. You have dropped the weight of invisible contracts. You have left the tribe of performance. And now you walk with your soul. This is the true pilgrimage, the path inward, the spiral into the self where you no longer seek mirrors in other people's eyes, but build altars in your own. And from these altars you will radiate, not to attract, not to convert, but simply because it is your nature. The sun does not shine to earn affection. It shines because it must. So must you. And now, let us return to the central wound, that aching bewilderment that echoes like a bell at the heart of your transformation. Why do they grow cold when I finally warm to myself? Because your fire threatens the frost of their forgetfulness. Because your inner light exposes the illusions they still wear, like armor. Because to witness someone rise from self-abandonment is to confront the parts of themselves they have long buried beneath distraction, approval-seeking, addiction, and masks. You are not the cause of their discomfort. You are the invitation they are not yet ready to accept. And yet, do not let this revelation curdle into bitterness. That would only reverse your journey. It would drag you back into the unconscious spiral where love must be justified, where your soul is on trial, where worth is something you must convince others of. No. The next phase of your emergence is compassion without compromise. To see the ones who turn cold not through the eyes of judgment, but through the souls knowing they are asleep. As I once was, let them rest. I will keep walking. You are becoming mythic. Not in fondue, but in meaning. You are becoming a living story of transformation. And all myths require separation before reunion, death before resurrection, silence before the new language can be spoken. Let us speak of this myth now, the ancient one. The Persephone within you has descended. You have tasted the pomegranate of self-knowledge. You cannot go back to the surface unchanged. You have been clowned in the underworld of your own unconscious, and though others may only see that your smile has changed, you are loved, more sovereign, no more precise. You are no longer the same, and so they do not know how to relate to you anymore. You are no longer a projection. You are no longer the emotional sponge. You are no longer the one who kept the family from imploding by imploding quietly inside. You are no longer the compliant child, no longer the flattering lover, no longer the sacrificial friend. You are you and the world, unaccustomed to someone who no longer bargains their worth, calls this strangeness selfish, distant, arrogant, even dangerous. Let them speak in the language of their own fear, because your silence now speaks in the language of eternity. Because your stillness now roars with sacred certainty, because your presence now blesses without begging to be blessed in return. You are beginning to understand that some doors close not because of failure, but because of completion. Some friendships end not because of betrayal, but because your vibration has outgrown the contract. Some cold shoulders are not punishment. They are signs from the cosmos that a new circle is forming. And this is where we now arrive at the edge of integration. You have gone into the shadow. You have spoken to your ghosts. You have walked through abandonment. You have kissed the mirror where your forgotten self waited patiently behind years of shame. Now, the integration begins. This means no longer reacting when someone withholds love. This means no longer shrinking when someone accuses you of being too much. This means walking into rooms not hoping to be chosen, but choosing yourself again and again until your very being becomes a sanctuary. You are the sanctuary now. The temple no longer exists outside of you. It is built within every time you say yes to your intuition and no to your self-erasure. And the coldness of others is no longer a threat. It is information. It tells you where people are in their journey. It reveals whether they seek control or connection, transaction or truth. You respond not with fear but with clarity. This is individuation, not perfection, not detachment, not some sterile spiritual plateau, but a rich, textured wholeness where you hold the child and the sage, the sinner and the saint, the longing and the enoughness, where you no longer need others to complete you, but can celebrate them when they meet you. So, what do you do now? As one who has crossed this threshold, you live. You speak even when your voice trembles. You rest even when the world demands performance. You love even when love is not mirrored back to you. You allow yourself joy not as a reward but as a birthright. You become a light not for display but because that is what you are. And slowly, you will notice the coldness no longer hurts. It simply is like weather passing transient, not a reflection of your flaw, but of the frost. And then something extraordinary happens. A presence arrives. Someone whose eyes do not flinch at your depth. Someone who speaks not to please but to share truth. Someone whose nervous system does not depend on your compliance. They do not drain you. They do not cage you. They do not mirror your wounds. They mirror your wholeness. You recognize them not because they complete you, but because they honor the self you fought to reclaim. This is soul resonance, and it comes only when you no longer bargain your love for belonging. So, I leave you now with this final remembrance. You are not here to be everyone's source of warmth. You are not here to keep others comfortable while you freeze. You are not here to convince anyone that you are worth staying for. You are here to embody the divine movement of becoming. And in that becoming, the ones who cannot walk beside you will fade. Let them. They were never yours. They were only reflections of who you once were, and now you are becoming the flame not to burn, but to illuminate, not to perform, but to radiate, not to win others back. But to never again leave yourself, and this sacred self-return is why they turned cold, because you finally became warm to yourself, and they could not follow. But you did not need them to, because in the echo of that final departure, you heard the sound of something eternal, beginning to sing you. You who stayed, you who rose, you who loved yourself when it was most dangerous to do so, you are the home you've been waiting for. Welcome back. Welcome in.